today for our speech, our mediated speech, we're going to be talking about gun control and the pros and cons of having gun control or not. So I'd like to introduce my other group members. I'm Alec. There's Nick, Faison, and Sasha. And we just want you to have three questions in mind for while we're speaking about different topics. Um, so the first question is, when you see a civilian carrying a gun, do you feel threatened or safe? Does ownership of weapon does ownership of weapons create a more hostile or safer environment? The second question we'd like to ask you um, is, with the ownership of guns and safe sorry guys, don't mind me. With the ownership of guns, the safety of the general public may increase. However, it may have adverse effects. So should the government implement laws enforcing gun control? So we've conducted thorough research from various sources on the different arguments in favor and against gun control laws. Regardless of your stance on the issue, you will most likely be affected by the decision to be made on gun control. So the use of gun control laws or the lack thereof will affect your perception of how safe you really are. Now, for the con side, that will be argued by Faison and Nick. The Second Amendment already prevents owners from possessing firearms used for unlawful purposes. More control over gun ownership will stop criminals from well, it won't stop criminals from gaining ownership. It will only stop lawful citizens who actually use them properly. So people have the right to protect themselves, especially with the police that are not able to respond right away. Now, on the pro side, which will be addressed by me and Sasha, is that the Second Amendment does not permit civilians to possess a firearm whenever or wherever they please. Gun control will decrease the amount of gun-related deaths as they lead in both homicide and suicide levels, related deaths, and most victims who do not utilize guns to protect themselves from a threat so increasing gun control will have a negligent effect. So the first argument is going to be by Faison.
Okay, so the first argument that we have on the con side is that the Second Amendment generally protects individual gun ownership. The Second Amendment it clearly allows for the right to bear arms and to own a gun, and we see this first in the District of Columbia et al. Versus Heller court case. So this case is happened in D.C. The District of Columbia had put a ban on owning and registering of handguns, and only the chief of police was allowed to provide permission for owning a gun for a 1-year period. A policeman named Heller sought to register his handgun but was denied. He argued that under the Second Amendment that he was allowed to own a gun. The court ended up deciding that Heller was correct and that the Second Amendment grants him that right for protection and other lawful purposes. So it's in our Constitution that we should be allowed to carry guns for our safety and other legal practices. So there shouldn't be gun control laws controlling what's already given to us.
But now, Faison, now with countries that have restrictive gun control laws, they supposedly have lower gun homicide and suicide rates than the United States. For instance, Switzerland is ranked third in gun ownership rates, with 45% of the ratio is 45.7 guns per 100 people. And in 2009, Switzerland had 24 gun homicides and 253 gun suicides. So, in terms of that, how would that prove your argument valid? Just kidding. Do I? Okay, so do I just
I was gonna
keep going?
say, yeah, no, I'll just add in, but I was just gonna say that you should probably word it so that I don't know if I feel like your point's not directly arguing mine. You should just argue that
It's not.
you should just be on another side of the on the other side that countries with more laws do have lower homicide rates, which is why gun control is important. And then for Switzerland facts, I guess I would word it. So I liked how you did the 45 per 100 people and the 24 homicides, but probably instead of saying the 24 homicides and the number of suicides, say how often they happen. So you see how they put
Yeah,
in
0.31 for
per
Puts it in
100,000 people.
perspective.
Yeah, because that gives it a better perspective because no one knows what those numbers mean compared to the U.S. or something. You know what I mean?
Actually, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so say that 0.31 per 100,000 people and the 3.29 per 100,000 people, and then you could be like compared to the, because I think the next point is just literally compared to the U.S. So like we can compare this to the U.S. who's number one in ownership rates and how many guns they have, and then the U.S. had this many gun deaths, which is equal to this per 100,000 people, and this many suicides, which is that per thing. And then you could say that this is because of blah, blah, blah. You can just read off the third point. It's very gun control, and Switzerland has testing,
Yeah, that's
which is
fine.
why gun control is very important and saves
Okay.
lives. Yeah.
All right. So
This is
then,
like what I was talking about when you see like a bunch of facts just listed out in list form. You should like make that into a paragraph so it's like easy to read out, so you don't have to like try to think about how to phrase that.
Yeah. You can.
This is exactly where that is bad.
yeah, I'm gonna like highlight everything in red about the important stuff that I should like
Yeah.
talk about.
Sure, that's fine.
And then what I did, I mean, for part D should be okay with you. I'm pretty sure you can just, well, no, you might want to change it a little bit too, because
Yeah, I will.
yeah, I mean, I wrote it in paragraph
If you
form,
try to
but
read it as it is, you're just going to end up stumbling a lot because it's not in sentences. You should just
Yeah.
turn it into sentences.
yeah,
Yeah,
just
that's
like,
fine.
and pick like the important numbers. I guess that matters more.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
like take
rather-
5 minutes and just rewrite it.
Yeah, rather than like the raw numbers, like I think percentages or like the rates are a lot stronger than like,
Yeah, like 24 gun homicides doesn't mean anything if there's only like 50 people in the country.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's true. All right. So
Just
I
do that
guess-
really, yeah, just do that really quickly, and then you can like do your thing again.
Yeah, spend like 5 minutes retyping all that. I'm gonna go make a new video so we can broadcast this again.
Okay.
So, alright.
That's so much work that you have to do it again.
yeah, I was
that's
gonna
pretty
say,
dumb.
do we just not wanna?
I was gonna say let's just keep this call
We can
going.
just keep going. I just want to get a time estimate on how long it actually takes. But
That's
I think
true.
We'll be okay.
Yeah.
All right. So then, if I was gonna say like arguing the point, what was the last thing that you said for your argument phase?
I was just saying that like there shouldn't be gun control laws essentially because it's in our
Second Amendment.
it's in our Second Amendment. So like it's a right to us. It's given to us that it shouldn't be like taken away. And then you can just be like, I don't know, like
This is where I'll come in and say, but countries with more restrictive gun control laws have lower rates of homicide and suicide.
it's not like a direct counter, so I wouldn't be like that counters your argument. Just be like it's more important. You know what I mean?
Okay. I guess yeah.
And then
I would say like so it's
You have
more
to talk
important.
again immediately after this point. Like it's you and then you again. So
Yeah.
like, you with that.
So like so after you finish like the counter argument, you should be like also gun control laws reduce be like
Just intro yourself in your new
yeah, your B and D kind of go together actually really well.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do when I was reloading him off.
So you can be like also the CDC reports that blah blah blah. So you don't even have to like segue into your next point. Oh no, actually you probably should.
You should.
Yeah. And then after that, Nick will go.
That's fine. So and I'll kind of like just
Yeah, just write everything out in like script form, though, so you don't have to like stumble. When you
I would
figure
just
it out.
download this Word document. You can just download
That's what
it
I
and then-
did.
Yeah.
and then just edit it yourself. That's fine.
So I'll just say what I was going to do again. So, the phase on countries with more restrictive gun control laws have lower rates of homicide and suicide than the United States. So if you were to look at countries like Switzerland, who's ranked third in gun ownership with 45.7 guns per 100 people, that in 2009 Switzerland had 0.31 to every 100,000 people in gun homicides and 3.29 to every 100,000 in gun suicide. Oh, that's homicides and suicides. Sorry. I'm going to fix that. And then, but now looking at the U.S., who's ranked first in gun ownership rates, with gun ownership rates of 88.8 guns per 100 people. In 2007, the U.S. had, for every 100,000 people, 4.9 deaths in gun homicides, and in 100,000 people, 5.76 deaths in suicides. So this is because the U.S. has very permissive gun control regulations as it is, where Switzerland has an extensive background testing before issuing a gun license. So the second point that I want to argue is that more gun control laws would reduce gun deaths. So the CDC reports, actually, quick question, what is the CDC? I didn't even look that one up.
It's the what's it called? Center for Disease Control. But they do like a lot of statistics on like death and stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So the CDC reports that there were 4.9 deaths 464,033 total gun deaths between 1999 and 2013. So now 58.2% of those deaths were suicides, then 37% were homicides, and 2.2% were unintentional deaths. Now, guns were the leading cause of death by homicide for 66%, and by suicide by 52% of all suicides. Firearms were the 12th leading cause of all deaths, representing 1.3% of the total deaths, topping liver disease, hypertension, and Parkinson's disease, as well as the deaths from fires, drowning, and machinery accidents. Guns have a huge cause of violent crime and need to be dealt with, and that they are used in a great deal of deaths and shouldn't be left uncontrolled.
Well, Alec, to counter your point, gun control laws don't actually deter crime. Gun ownership does. Usage of gun control has not lowered crime. For example, from John Watts Jr.'s book, More Guns, Less Crime, since gun control became limited in Canada in 1998, the homicide rate has risen while the United States homicide rate has fallen. The author also states that when handguns are banned in 1997, crime rose. Gun crimes nearly doubled in the next 4 years. Serious violent crimes from 1997 to 2002 averaged 29% higher than in 1996. Robbery was 24% higher, and murder was 27% higher. Before the law, armed robberies had fallen from 50% to 1993 to 1997. But as soon as handguns were banned, the armed robbery rate shot back up, almost back to the 1993 levels. The violent crime rate in England is now double that in the United States. And journalist Thomas Sewell, in his article, The Great Gun Control Fallacy, notes that under Britain's gun control laws, armed robberies have increased from a dozen in the 90s to hundreds times as much. He also explains in comparisons of gun ownership with the different countries. For example, ownership is 3 times as high in Switzerland as it is in Germany, but the Swiss have had lower murder rates. This shows that gun control does not matter in relation to the prevalence of crimes. Gun control laws infringe upon... I guess it's a different point entirely. Also, another point is that gun control laws infringe upon the rights to self-defense and deny people a sense of safety. The National Rifle Association and the Gun Owners of America claim that guns are used in self-defense 2.5 million times per year, or rather 6,850 times per day. According to the Armed Criminals in America in May 2013, 48% of surveyed convicted felons admitted that they avoided committing a crime when they knew the victim was armed with a gun. Civilian gun ownership is necessary to deter criminals from carrying out their crimes.
On the other hand, guns are rarely used in self-defense. Gun holders are actually far more likely to hurt themselves than somebody else with it. And the Violence Policy Center also concluded that guns are far more likely to be stolen than used for self-defense. As stated in Firearm Violence from BJS.gov, between 2007 and 2011, less than 1% of violent crimes involved victims that protected themselves with a firearm. It was the least employed protective behavior. So people aren't utilizing the firearms in the main way that has been most argued reason for having them. Also, research conducted by VSP.org found that in 2010 there were only 230 justifiable homicides in which a citizen used a firearm to kill a felon. So if all of this research discredits the fact that most guns uses are not used for self-defense, why continue allowing them to be purchased when they clearly aren't being used properly? And the final reason for gun control laws is that these laws would reduce the societal costs associated with gun violence. A lot of money goes into not only monitoring and preventing gun violence, but also dealing with the aftermath, whether that be health-related, economical, or even psychological. According to the World Health Organization, the cost of gun violence can include legal services, medical costs, policing, incarceration, psychological costs, and among many others. So there are many repercussions associated with gun use that's not only directly affecting the individuals involved, but spreads even further and affects the country as a whole. Additionally, the costs are immense. According to the Pacific Institute of Research and Evaluation, gun violence costs the U.S. government $5.5 billion in lost tax revenue, $4.7 billion in court costs, $1.4 billion in Medicare and Medicaid costs, and many other costs. All of this is extremely high and clearly shows that something needs to change in order to correct for these costs. And finally, when it comes to hospital costs, according to urban.org, in the hospital cost of firearm assaults, in 2010 there were over 36,000 emergency room visits, and 25,000 hospitalizations for gun injuries, costing an estimate of $6.3 million in total. And most of the injured are uninsured, which leaves taxpayers responsible for most of the bills through programs like Medicaid. So as you can see, you can't really ignore all of the costs, which are not only monetary but affect individuals physically, psychologically, and can have effects for decades.
On the other hand, though, gun control laws such as background checks and microstamping are an invasion of privacy. Background checks would require that the government databases keep personal individual information of gun owners, including their name, address, mental health history, criminal records, and even more. No information online is 100% safe and will be accessible to determined individuals that have the ability to hack into these systems, as well as government officials who are not law-abiding, meaning that all this information will be out and you can't ensure that your information is safe. Anyone can use it, anyone can grab it. There's a potential for creating a worry that you're going to see searches of the databases and an expansion for purposes that were not intended when the information was collected. So people will use like all this information they gather on you not for gun control. They'll use it for a bunch of other things that you don't want to see happen. Microstamping similarly requires a database of gun owners and codes their personal guns would stamp on their cartridge cases. Senators Ron Paul and Mike Lee and Ted Cruz wrote that they would oppose any legislation that infringes on the American people's constitutional right to bear arms or on their ability to exercise this right without being subjected to government surveillance. Just because people want to protect themselves and ensure their safety doesn't mean that they should be tracked by the government at all times. Overall, all our points, the summary of all our points are that countries with restrictive gun control laws have lower gun homicide and suicide rates than the United States. Additionally, gun control will lower gun-related deaths on average. Firearms are already not utilized the majority of the time during a violent threat, so increasing regulation will not make a huge impact in that sense, and having more gun control laws would reduce societal costs in relation to gun violence. On the con side, of gun control, the Second Amendment protects individuals' right to bear arms. Additionally, more control will not stop criminals if they are really determined to possess a gun. Finally, firearms should be an option for civilians to protect themselves when the police are not able to assist immediately. Gun control laws are an invasion of privacy, and how do I word that? Gun control laws are an invasion of privacy and provide and allow people to obtain others' information that they didn't want to get out. At the end of the day, gun control is a very complex issue, but most importantly, it's in the hands of the public, which is you. You get to decide how to ensure maximum safety for the country. And then I guess we just end it like that.
Ta-da! There's our project.
I just have to reword the conclusion a little bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna change a few things from mine.
I think we could all use a little bit of cleaning up.
Yeah.
The transition from your last point phase on to the conclusion was pretty rough.
Yeah.
So,
I had to think because like it just went. I read the summary, but I was like, oh wait, that's the pro side. My bad. So like I have to just use that.
Just make sure that flows better.
Yeah.
Also, like it's pretty obvious that we're all like reading from this. Like if you look at like where our eyes are.
Yeah. So we're gonna have to like.
You gotta work on that.
I don't think it's so much of a problem that we're reading through it. It's just maybe we shouldn't have such lengthy sentences. Like obviously we're going to be looking at the computer screen anyway, and I know like we're going to have to read these facts because I don't think we're going to remember 58.7% of this and that. But I think it's just as long as our facts aren't so lengthy in sentences.
We're just going to be able to. I guess like we have to run through it so that when we do it, like it's not super dependent on us reading it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
We could definitely see from some of our points. Like, I think Sasha did it best. Like, where she could like read off it, but like kind of like, I don't know if you just worded it, so it didn't look like you were really reading it, but you were like kind of like.
Oh really? I was reading all of it. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I could talk pretty much all of them.
So like, I liked yours. That was good. I might just like move my document also to the middle of the screen instead of the side.
That's a good idea. Yeah, because mine's on the side right now. If you want it to the middle, it looks like you're actually looking at the thing.
Does it look like I'm staring right into the camera right now?
I mean, it looks better. But
okay.
The problem is like when you're reading, your eyes like move horizontally. So
that's true. Yeah.
You can definitely just see that.
Okay. Well, let me just see. So what should I say for? Do you think that I did the last con? Was that kind of well, or like I don't know?
I don't remember how it was.
So like what there was one point that I said that I was like it'll allow information to get out there so people like what information they want to get out. I need to like I was trying to like fish for examples, but I couldn't really think of anything for like how like this information could be used. Like I guess I could be like scammers or something could use this information. And
That makes sense. Nick, how's our time?
Well, we took like a 20-minute break to talk about Iraq and
yeah.
the intro.
Yeah, so even if we drop 5 minutes, it's still 15. So like,
I
because
don't
we
know how.
talked for
It's
we
not.
talked
There's
for a
no
little
live
bit.
clock on this, so I have to like end the video for us to like see how long it actually is.
Okay, hold up.
Yeah, got it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I was gonna say I feel like regardless, like we're gonna have to look at it while we're reading. So
Yeah.
we just can't
I
make
mean,
it sound like we're reading.
yeah, we're gonna look at it, and I think that's okay to like have notes on our speech, but like don't read so fast. I guess I did this too. Like,
Yeah.
don't make it obvious you're reading.
Hmm.
Um,
I need to get on charge. I'll be right back.
I guess quick question for you guys.
Yeah.
So if I was to say, because how these percentages are set up, it's like 0.31 of everyone. Would it be like 3.29 people out of every 100,000 are involved in gun suicides? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just a
Yeah.
weird way of saying it.
You should just be like um yeah, I think that's fine. Like 3.29 per 100,000 people are involved in gun suicides, and 0.31 per 100,000 people are involved in gun homicides. I think that's
Okay.
fine. Yeah. Mm.
I guess like when I don't know if we have to like state every. I would imagine we do like state every source as we're talking through them.
Yeah, I think we do.
Okay.
Um. Okay. Oh, let me just reword mine. And then we can, I guess, try it for. You guys want to try it for real?
Yeah, we can try it for real, and then hopefully that's good enough that I don't have to do it again.
Just give me 1 second.
Guns were leading cause of death by homicide. Okay.
Yeah, I just got the wrong cast.